Oh, right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is the Morbid Symptoms podcast, going live with Dr. Benjamin Studebaker. He's back for part two, or I don't know. Yeah, whatever. That's fine. And I'm very happy about that because, as some of you probably noticed, things are kind of popping off all over the place, at least on the surface politically. So whether it be of course, the U.S. The last time we talked, the thing was about Biden's competency and how we're being asked to believe that he's, healthy as a horse. And now, then what's happened since then? We have the assassination attempt, and we have also the UK elections to talk about, and the French elections. It's kind of, was a big splash and then totally went away. And then they had the RNC convention, and apparently, the Amber Rose was on there, and Matt Walsh freaked out, and there was this fantastic Twitter exchange between Cat Turd and Tristan Tate and Matt Walsh. Anyway, how you doing, Benjamin? What's going on?
Good.
How you feeling?
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on. You said we were asked to believe that Biden is competent. Now we're being asked to believe that Kamala Harris is a real politician.
Yeah, did you see that? I know I probably not because I've been just like spamming poor Benjamin on Twitter DM saying, like, you don't have to respond to this. I'm just kind of plopping things here as I see them. And I don't know if you saw the one where it was I don't know who he was. I hadn't heard his name before, but he had a large following, and he was like, don't even dare skip over Kamala Harris. Like, you can't step over the black lady.
These people don't.
Do you think that'll work for anybody? The ID politics thing?
It works only until you actually have to watch her talk. And if they ever pick her, people will have to watch her talk. And then all of this identitarian stuff that's based on her demographics will fall away. And people will have to confront what she's really like, who she really is as an individual, as a person, not as an example of a race or as an example of a religion. I don't think that she would do any better than Biden. But part of the fun of this moment is that right now, everything everybody says that's negative is right, and everything everybody says that's positive is wrong. So, of course, Biden has dementia and is senile, right? And yet it's also the case that Kamala Harris is a terrible politician with really, really bad political skills, especially for running for president, because she does better when you can say different things in different rooms and empathize with different crowds in ways that are incompatible with one another. She does not do well when cameras follow her everywhere and there are leaks, because then people realize that she just says whatever these rooms want to hear and that she's completely incoherent. So she's a terrible presidential candidate. She made sense for the VP because if you hide her and she gets no media coverage, people like the demographic boxes that she ticked within the demographic box.
Okay. Yeah, the aesthetics, yeah.
Yeah, but she can't actually run for president. And anyone who thinks she can has forgotten who she is, because the Biden administration hid her. And they hid her because they know that media attention is bad for her. So they know that she's a bad candidate. And that is,
I wonder if she knows that. Do you think do you think she at some level knows that? Or are these people totally impossible of knowing their weaknesses?
Oh, I don't know. It's hard for me.
I know you don't know. I'm just like speculation.
Yeah, because she's so different in every room. It's hard to know what's really there. But I do think that even Biden in his degenerated state knows on a kind of reptilian Biden level that Kamala Harris cannot do better than him in a presidential election. No matter how senile or degenerated he is, he's not going to believe that she's going to do better than him. Right? Which means the alternative to him from his point of view can't be her. It would have to be an open convention. And then everybody knows what happened when Lyndon Johnson quit in '68, and you had the open convention with Humphrey.
I don't think Mary
other challengers.
Do you think people remember that?
Maybe they don't. Maybe I should
tell. Some people do.
All right. I'll tell the story for those who don't remember, right?
I mean, you might want to.
So 1968, Lyndon Johnson is floundering because the Vietnam War is not going well. And he becomes convinced he can't win re-election. So he decides to stand down for the '68 election and to not endorse any particular replacement. But of course, he wants his vice president, Hubert Humphrey, to be the pick. But there is a sizable number of people in '68 who want, say, Robert F. Kennedy Sr., There's a sizable number of people who want Eugene McCarthy. There's a sizable number of people who want George Wallace. So the Democratic Party fragments along all these different lines. And eventually the elites of the party impose Humphrey at the convention, even though the primaries that were conducted, he didn't do very well in any of them. And this leads to rioting at the convention. It also leads to the defection of many Southern Democrats who vote for Wallace as a third-party candidate, and several Southern states actually being won by the third-party candidate. That's the last time a third-party candidate has won states. So it was a huge catastrophe for the party. It led to the total rewriting of the party's nomination rules. Our whole system for picking presidential nominees dates back to the reaction to 68. The reason the parties go, you have to have this big, long primary process way before the convention, is that if you have a dispute or a deep division in the party at the convention, that has the possibility of splitting the party, not just in that election, but perhaps even permanently. It poses real long-term risk, structural risk to the party to continue picking the way that they used to pick prior to 68. So for that reason, the Democrats are really, really scared to return to that process, especially given even if it works, they may lose the election anyway. The people that they have to pick from, none of them are terribly inspiring. And the best candidates know that this is a bad cycle. They know that they would be operating at a heavy disadvantage if they run this cycle. Their odds of winning aren't very high. And if somebody loses, they can run in 2028 in a normal election. And in a normal election, or reasonably normal by today's standards, they think they would do better than they would in this situation where they have to get on the ballot at an open convention. So I think it's unlikely that the Democrats can find anyone who's any good through an open convention. And even if they can they produce enough unity around that candidate for it to be good to have picked them relative to sticking with Biden? But that doesn't mean Biden is not senile or decrepit. He totally is. So everybody who has something negative to say is right. And anyone who pretends that any of these options is likely to work out, I think is wrong. That said, when some people hear all of that and go, okay, well, Trump is just definitely going to win the election, I go, hang on a second. The polling still has Biden within 5 points nationally. Indeed, the Nate Silver average, the 538 average, they've got him within 3 points nationally right now. And what that means is that there is a significant number of Americans who understand on an intuitive level that Biden does not run the country. It's run by a regency. And this Biden regency is ultimately responsible for what's happened over the last 4 years. And it includes all these Biden insiders that sometimes get mentioned by Politico or The Hill, but are never in our normal public discourse, right? And there's a chunk of people for whom the Biden regency is better than Donald Trump. And this chunk of people might be enough, depending on what happens over the next 4 months. So I still don't think it's a wrap. I don't think Donald Trump is guaranteed to win the election. I think he probably will win, but he's not guaranteed. And that the difficult thing for the Democrats is that they have no obvious positive course of action they can take. When I offer this analysis, people think I'm like making a normative argument, like I'm defending Biden or I like Biden or Biden to... No, I don't care. I don't care at all. I don't think that the left is going to benefit from any particular outcome in this election. I don't think I'm going to benefit. I don't think any of this is politically good for anybody. I just don't care. But I think, as a political theorist, it's important for me to maintain my sense of what's going on. And that means I have to do some analysis. I have to. If I didn't do that, I would, my muscles would get weak and they'd atrophy.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I share that with my followers because if I'm doing some work in my head, I want to put it in front of my people and let them think about it. But it does not mean that I normatively support any of these people. I don't expect to vote for any of these candidates, not any Democratic nominee, not any Republican nominee, not Jill Stein, not RFK Jr., none of these people.
You're not a love warrior?
No.
No. I forgot. I forgot he was. I forgot about it. I forgot about his campaign, and I got some sort of email, and it was like, "Attention, love warriors," and whatever that lady is he's running with, and I was just like, and I'm gonna do this, even though again people will come for me or call me racist or something. Some people, I want to have a video, maybe like 10 minutes of the Cornel West campaign that wasn't. Just and I think in the background, what I'd like to do is have, as instead of music, just have him, how he always goes over, my trans brothers and sisters and my black brothers and sisters and this and that and this and that, he has this kind of like his, his elevator pitch. And I want to have that kind of going in the background on a loop while I show this thing. Oh my God. And again, people will get mad. And it's like, I liked him. I have the Cornel West Reader on my bookshelf. I saw him on his Race Matters tour at Oregon State University when I was a freshman. It's like, I didn't do this. He did this. I mean, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
If you put a gun to my head, a bit of a segue on that before we get into Virginia.
If you put a gun to my head and you said I had to vote for one of the people who is going to be on the ballot in my state, and I can't write in anybody or spoil my ballot or do anything fun, I had to pick someone likely to be on the ballot, I would probably have to pick Cornel West, but I would do it with no joy. And I would do it just to make the gunman leave me alone.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And I mean, I just think that I don't know. I don't know if he didn't realize it, or, that just kind of, I'll do this political thing and I'll just make it up as I go along. I'm a jazzman, like that was going to work. Or that, and I quickly, and you said when I think there's a parallel to be made here. Not that he's, he's far and away brilliant. I mean, I'm not going to take away from his intellect. He's a brilliant, brilliant man. And a moral one. I'm not saying I don't want to bash him at an individual level. But in terms of when people get to hear him speak over and over again, like I like Cornel West, I like and I'm not an evangelical or anything, but the kind of the preacher thing when he gets into like W.B. Du Bois and what are we going to be from our, from what are we going to do from the journey from the mother's womb to tomb? And he's, how does this? And I'm just like, yeah. But if you hear it all the time,
academics think a preacher is.
If you hear it all the time,
why academics love him.
Yeah,
but if you hear it was designed for that kind of environment. It's designed for the university environment. It's not for politics.
But what I wanted to say is once I heard it regularly, it started to grate on me. Like Rabbi Abba Herschel, he has the names, Rabbi Herschel and this and that. And then, he lists all the things, all his sisters and brothers and all this stuff. And then, and it's like, I'm a crack vessel like everybody else. So I'm not, and that's cool. But if it's a campaign, some people, that's just, I don't know. I thought, okay, in a small dose, fine. Because of course, before he ran for president, I saw him, every once in a while, I would see a speech or see a thing he'd do, if he was doing a teach-in or getting arrested with Christopher Hitchens, sorry, Chris Hedges or something. But once he started to go on and on, I was like, dude, you've got to diversify your material.
Yeah, you're only supposed to hear from him a few times a year. He's an academic.
Yeah.
His charisma is for that kind of pattern. He's a few times a year, he'll sound like he's fun and different. But if you get him all the time, you go, this guy has really thought too much about this. And he is deliberately doing bits that he is overwrought.
Greatest hits. Yeah.
And lots of great academics do this, like Quentin Skinner, the historian of political thought. He gives the same talks all the time whenever he visits universities. He gives this liberty talk. He's given almost the same version of it over and over again. It's a great talk when you hear it one time. You hear it a bunch of times, you start to think about it in different ways.
No, and I don't know if it was Peter Dow, or no, it was Professor, what's it, Zinkus or whatever it was. And oh my God, he was the attack dog, and I couldn't take it. Well, I know I was just having fun, and so I made a bingo card for when you're watching Cornel West talk, and I had all this stuff on there, and he was like, "That's sick," and blah blah blah, and I'm like, "Dude, pull a stick out of your butt," It's like, are you mad because it's true? Because that's true. You just try it. You will check off all those things. And again, I'm not, I dig him, but I think it's very well put that it's like, like if you had a great class, a great seminar class, and you're like, wow, and you're just like, woo, woo, woo. But if you had to take that over and over again, you'd be like, really, you can't, it's just all you have.
Politics is a really different rhetorical game from being an academic. And the academics who don't understand that have a bad time.
Yeah, so I think that's it's just kind of a cautionary tale. It's too bad. I think it's just, I don't know, but just for fun. I mean, I think I'm gonna have to do that. The campaign that wasn't, or that's still going. I don't know. Anyway, because of what you said, and thank you for that. I think that's I don't know if you've written on that and put it on your website about the 68 election or the 68 DNC. And because you have a lot of people who think it'd be fantastic, it'd be great for democracy, and it'd be thrilling if they had an open convention, and and they would show the
I haven't
public
written
how
anything up about it
democracy's
recently.
done, and I was just like, all right.
In part because it's just descriptive analysis. I don't have a kind of normative motivation. It's not like I'm trying to help somebody. I don't care. So I don't have in previous election cycles, I used to write up stuff about the elections because I cared about the outcome on some level.
Okay.
In 2012, I was trying to get people to not vote. In 2016, 2020, I was trying to help Bernie. If you care and you think that there's something to be achieved, then yeah. But I just share it on Twitter and on podcasts because I'm just having fun with it with you guys. I'm way shut-pilled on all of that.
Okay, but I just meant in terms of just as an educational service, because people really, most people don't know anything about that, I don't think. But anyway, not that I'm trying to give you more work to do. I know you did explain it. I'm just asking as a follow-up. Some people like to read.
Yeah,
some people like to hear. Geez, Benjamin. Okay, that's all right. I like it. He's fired up today, people. Anyway, so here's something. I think I shared this to you. I thought this cracked me up. I'll read it because it's for when you at least on my computer when I share my screen, it's not that good. So this is Virginia Hefferman, great name. If Biden drops out, the Times, The Atlantic, Ezra Klein, George Clooney, and all the media and social media will move heaven and earth to be sure the Democrat wins. That's not nothing.
Isn't that what they always do?
Is that the democracy we're was trying to save, Virginia? So I don't know if you want to have any fun with this one.
Yeah, the movement for Biden to drop out is very elite driven. When I talk to people, ordinary people in the Midwest about it, a lot of them feel the Democrats are being disloyal to this old guy because they knew that he was old and senile. A lot of ordinary people knew this and thought he was old and senile in 2020. A lot of them were never convinced by the line that he wasn't old and senile. So they're going, hey, this didn't really reveal anything we didn't already know about him. You guys are just revealing that you are cowards who are afraid to back your guy.
So she goes on. Sure, politics figure into reporting, but much more significant is ego. Media outlets fall in love with what they perceive as their stories. Scoops or hot takes. Oh, she's bringing it. Like she thinks this is a new take. That's fine, Virginia. This is why the New York Times went in so hard but her email. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is why the New York Times went in so hard, but for her emails, it was theirs. Same with Judy Miller and the Iraq War. On the other hand, the 1619 Project. And I just, I didn't do too much. I just said, but it won't matter. PMC, DNC, ID poll is DOA. Trust the people.
How old is she?
I don't know, but just for our audience, PMC
Maybe
is professional.
She's 18 and has not thought about this stuff for very long.
So I'll click on her file in a thing in a moment, her bio. So again, I also can't take this too seriously, but once you're in the Twitter space, it becomes like Mad Max Thunderdome. You're just like, or at least I am. And I've been trying, this is kind of an aside, I've been trying to spend more time on notes in Substack to build that up. And it's such a different environment that I'm like, I don't know, I'm going to have to pick like certain, some days I'll do Twitter and some days I'll do Substack to go back and forth. I just have to, because it's a total like different vibe. But anyway,
I try not to have it be a different vibe. That's part of what limits my growth on Twitter.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I used to not be this way, Benjamin. I mean, not in public. I mean, I used to be like, I have to be proper. I'm a doctor. I mean, not really. I mean, I'm down home also, got my roots. But, But it's just, I don't know what it was. There's been so many things that you just get to a point and you're like, you know what? I'm not. And to me, it's also like, if it's clear that someone is, if it's not that serious, or if it's not good faith, or if it's just BS, then I'm like, you know what? I don't think we're doing anybody any favors by giving stuff credence that shouldn't have any credence. So if something should be ridiculed, or if I think something should be ridiculed, then I'm just. But anyway, you're protecting your brand, yeah, which is good.
I don't really have another side to me. This is just who I am at this point. Yeah, if you've listened to my pods, I've been doing pods for many years now. So anything that could have come out probably would have by now.
Ooh,
I've potted with people who would definitely bring it out.
Yeah. Well, anyway, also, that's we'll plug that. Benjamin does the lack with recently canceled Nina Power. Or did you cancel her? Did you disinvest? Did you make a proclamation to make sure that everybody knew that you had no connection with her?
We intend to continue with the lack. Nina is not a fascist. I have recorded over 100 hours of podcasts with Nina Power. I know her soul. She is not a fascist, and no one can dispute it. I know her soul because I have recorded over 100 hours with her. None of the people who are trying to cancel her know her in this moment. They may have known her in the past, but know her in this moment as well as I do. So none of them are qualified to tell me that I'm wrong.
See there? You see there, compact? You see how easy it is? That's the way. I don't want to get too far off track, but I've gotten so pissed off at this that I'm like, okay, I was going to go after Vosh because he did that thing with Nina with the swastika. Did you see that? Lovely man. I don't know. Oh no, Vosh. You know who Vosh is? I'm sure you have the unfortunate.
Unfortunately, I know who Vosh is.
Yeah. Well, he did a stream, and the thumbnail of the stream was Nina's face on one side and J.K. Rowling's on the other, a swastika pointing at Nina's face and saying, Nina Power outed as the most terrible person or something. Then went on some sort of rant about her. And so I thought, okay, that's it. No, the best defense is a good offense. And I'm surprised because I put out something thinking like, of course you want to get beef, but I'm totally serious about this. I was like, I used the meme from, I don't know if you've watched Cobra Kai. It was actually a surprisingly good Cobra Kai. For years, I didn't watch it. I was like, this is stupid, whatever. And then I don't know what was happening. It was during COVID or something. And I started to watch it. I'm like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. It was so enjoyable. Anyway, there's just one part where this girl is coming after the other girl, and she gets on the speaker in the principal's office. She says, hey, or something like that. Hey, so-and-so, I'm coming for you, bitch. And so I have that, and I have it, hey, Vosh, we're coming for you, Whinge Mitch, or something like that. That's what I'm saying about normally at my age, it's kind of silly, but I'm just so done with this stuff. And nobody gets enough pushback. People are afraid of these people. So what you just said was brilliant and all you needed to say. But the compact cowards can't say anything. And they're trying to be like, oh, we're anti-woke and we're against cancel culture and we're this and that and the other. And didn't even wait after the first Stasi drop from Luke Turner, kicked her to the curb. And that was it.
Well, they're in the market. They have a magazine to sell. Yeah. And when you have a magazine to sell, then there are certain market pressures you have to deal with. And they may think behind scenes that it's ridiculous or silly, and they may wish they could do otherwise, but they have people who write for them or people who subscribe who will not write for them anymore or subscribe for them anymore if they don't go along with this. And that constrains what they can do and what they can be. It's part of why I never decided to start a magazine. I never decided to make a compact or a current affairs. I write for a lot of magazines, and I sympathize with people who run them because they're in a very difficult situation materially. It's very hard.
Why are you excusing this terrible, cowardly, hypocritical behavior?
Oh,
I'm not disputing. I'm not disputing what you're saying. What I'm saying is, if you present yourself in this way, Jeff, whatever his last name is, it Schellenberger? I don't know. Jeff, whoever. Jeff, somebody who's the second in command over there. Dude literally published an unheard yesterday about cancel culture.
I try not to
He's
individualize.
complaining about the libs of TikTok who are outing that poor lady from Walmart. And I'm like, I'm on a mission. Well, I don't actually follow him, but once you know how YouTube, well, not YouTube, Twitter works. Once you say something to somebody, then you're constantly getting all their stuff in the For You thing. And so I'm just like, I mean, this hypocrisy is crazy. I mean,
they're
the
slaves
idea,
of the magazine, and the magazine
they
is
didn't
a
even
slave of the
wait.
market.
They didn't even wait to see if it blew over. I mean, just as an example, this is 2 examples, and we'll go back to this Hefferman lady, and her interesting idea of what democracy the Democrats have to be saving, undemocratically apparently, is that The Economist. Just an example. Helen Joyce was an editor, worked for The Economist, I don't know, 15, 20 years or something. She did this book called Trans when ideology meets reality or something like that. Did a research, and basically I'll try to be short with the story. She was hearing about this and she was like, oh, what's going on here? And she started to look into it, and people were like, oh, no one wanted to say anything. People were like, you should not, let's just leave it alone. And so that piqued her interest. Now, of course, you can imagine everything that comes at her when she dares to say, sex is real. You can't literally transition, whatever, what's going on with this medical stuff. But her boss at The Economist, when the people came for her, shut it down immediately. They're like, yeah, no. Just basically, just let the people knew that there was no wiggle room to get them out there. Now, if they do what most people do, or most organizations do, which is try to distance themselves, have it both ways. Well, we have to appreciate academic freedom. We have to appreciate, freedom of speech. However, of course, her views don't represent the views of the economy. Trying to be like this thing. According to Helen, her editor and the higher ups of The Economist just didn't have any time for that bullshit. And it lets the people know that they can't go after that way. So it's not impossible. Yeah. And again, of course, being called a transphobe is probably, it's not as bad as being called an anti-Semite and a Nazi lover and all that stuff. I can appreciate, well, I don't know. Ask Catherine Stott. They usually go together, but that's a different story. So, and also you have, what's his name? Glenn Greenwald. And he's talked about this before, that especially when how his audience is kind of veered over time, and that he tries really hard to not let himself get captured by his audience. And he would say, when I started to be pushing back and being critical about the Palestine-Israel narrative, yeah, a lot of the people that started to gravitate to him from the quote unquote right because of free speech and calling out Russiagate got pissed at that, and he lost some people, but he also gained some people. So I'm not saying, I totally agree with you. There's market pressures and all that. And do you really want to take the risk? But in particular, if you present yourself as that and then fall at the first sign of trouble, the first shots fired, I'm just like, no, I'm coming for them. I'm a small platform.
They think that it's possible to resist it through the market, that they convince themselves that they can, through market activity, overcome the market. And this is a mistake that they make. And then the mistake leads them down a path which results in them becoming the thing that they initially opposed. And all of them, when they get started, they think they're going into the space to change it. They think they're going into the market to change the market. When really what they're doing is they're becoming slaves of these magazines, which are in turn slaves of the market. And as a socialist, I'm here to emancipate people from slavery, not to condemn the slaves for their position, right? Or for the consequences of slavery on their consciousness, on their subjectivity, right? So for me, I would emphasize that in socialism, we will free the writers and talkers and journalists from the market. And someone like Sohrab will be free to express what he really thinks in public. He won't have to play this game. Someone like Joff, they'll be free to say what they really think. And they won't have to play this game. It's because we continue to stay in the market, and we think that the market allows us to express ourselves freely in a marketplace of ideas, that we delude ourselves into thinking that by running magazines, we can change things.
No, and I take that point, and I'm all for you. And when I used to be in the teaching gig and have students and whatnot, I would say, okay, whenever possible, focus on the game, not the players. Except they're really big players, if they're politicians or something, that's one thing. Especially if it's a private citizen, then no. However, I think that it's possible to, it's not really ad hominem. I mean, I'm having a bit fun of it just as an outlet. But the idea is like, you guys say this, and then you do this, and like gaslighting us, like we're not supposed to,
Yeah,
you know.
but that happens with every magazine.
There has to be accountability. Yeah, if there's not accountability, though, these people keep on doing it, and these Stasi, witch burning, whatever, continue to have, too much sway.
But the push for accountability is also an attempt to do Stasi witch burning, right? It's also an attempt to ruin the reputations of these people as individuals as a consequence of what they did. So, I'm very into turn the other cheek on cancellation. Because if you start going after the compact people because they went after Nina, then we're just playing the same game of going after
I'm not
people.
trying to cancel them. I know you're
not trying to, but they'll get defensive. They'll get into a posture of, you're trying to take my job, you're trying to ruin my life.
Oh, bullshit. They won't even notice me, probably.
Well, maybe not you, but in principle, right? This kind of energy. So I try to dissipate it. I try to explain why we're in the situation and go, we must all feel compassion for one another because we are all of us stuck in capitalism. And these are we're talking about journalists and talkers, not politicians, not the president of the United States. We're not doing politics when we start arguing about who should be running which magazines. We are just engaged in our own little internal professional squabble. We should transcend that insofar as we can.
Yeah. What I would say is that you clearly don't have children, which is lucky for you, because sometimes you got to bring the hammer, Benjamin.
Oh, well, but that's as a parent, right? That's in the role of being a parent, which is different
but this
from
is
what
also,
we're doing here.
But social behavior, shame, ridicule, saying this is not how we're going to do this. There's going to be pushback. There's a consequence for this type of behavior, both for not just for the Luke Turners and the that band of merry witch burners or whatever it is, but also for the people who fall on this. These are not little boys. These are grown ass men. Very accomplished.
If they were little boys, I'd be more punitive with them.
Grown ass men. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to write one article, do one podcast, and that's it. I'm not going to try to, mount a boycott of compact campaign or anything like that. But this behavior, they enable it. They enable it.
If they were children, then I would do this kind of thing if I was their father. But I'm not their father, right? We're in.
How does this end then? How does this end though, Benjamin? We have to wait for socialism before we can say no to these cancellation campaigns.
We have to focus on trying to get somewhere ourselves. We have to ignore the stuff that is a distraction. We have to ignore the market, culture war, petty squabbling. We can't get caught in all of this. We can't keep pretending that it matters. It doesn't matter.
But it does matter. It matters to you. It matters to people who get bankrupted, who get smeared.
Yes. But we can't do a politics that's based on our interest as professionals. That will not deliver socialism.
Yeah, but I'm not. I don't see how I'm doing that because I'm not trying to get market share. I mean, of course, I want to build my program. I'm trying to model in a kind of whatever. It's possible to push back against this. Now, if I got really obsessed about it,
arguing for our labor rights as professionals in the media, in the university setting, and this is something we should do internally. We should confront internally, but trying to use ad hoc social pressure, trying to mobilize the ordinary people on behalf of particular writers and thinkers. This has diminishing returns. And it has diminishing returns because they can see that it doesn't matter, that they're not achieving anything by participating in our internal squabbling.
No, for sure. But for me, just is the fact that and this is maybe just a moral thing or just so that I can live with myself, is that if you see something, say something, and that to be that even if it's just an uncomfortable tweet they have to read, that it gets the idea is that this was a very coward, hypocritical move. And that's it. And again, I'm far from perfect. That's whatever. But it's just the thing. I'm like, no, I wasn't. I was like, I'm now going to have to do something on this in addition to that. And I think it's,
I mean, for
because,
me,
but also I think
I'm
it's just, I think it's just fascinating. I think, and the argument you just brought in, I hadn't even thought about because I was too focused on the on a certain level. But in terms of the of bringing in a market analysis as a structural explanation for why they handled this situation the way they did, I totally agree with you that in the long run, that's much more important than just us being like, look, dude, please. And there's something to say about solidarity. If you can't trust anybody to have your back at all, that's not good for socialism either.
But that's what the market does. It atomizes us,
Yeah.
and it creates a fractious Hobbesian multitude, ultimately, where there is no such thing as society. It destroys social ties, social organizations, social associations. Anything that is a break on it, it overcomes, it deterritorializes, right? This is at the core of what we have to say. So if we start making it individual and personal, we throw out our whole real theory of everything. We have to apply our theory to stuff in life. Otherwise, it's just intellectual play. It hasn't penetrated the heart mind. To have it really penetrate the heart mind, we have to immediately, reflexively, when we are reacting to something in real time, feel this way about it.
No, and I agree with you. And the thing is, but I have no problem, and I think this is totally fair play to critique someone with their own words. Yeah, and their own positions. This isn't WhatsApp chats.
Is it theirs? Is it
whatever.
theirs, though, or is it the market?
That's what they said.
Speaking through them, impersonating them.
Again, do they have agency or not?
I don't know that they do.
Constrained. All I'm saying is that I'm not going to feel bad about being like, here's what this publication, this is what they stand for, this is their mission, this is the kind of articles that they wrote. This stress. So, what is that fantastic thing? SWOT, the SWOT analysis. Yeah. So strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Yeah. So, and be like, okay, and then this happens, and this is what they do. Nothing, and then just kind of pontificate about what that means. But I'm glad that I brought this up, and I'm glad you said that. I will also bring in the other part. And then I'm done. Then it's not, because it's not. And then then I move on to the next thing. But it's just now that I know a bit about it,
internally, like within our own spaces. If I were talking to someone else who writes, or someone else who's an aspiring theorist or academic, and they said, I'm thinking about doing this, or I'm thinking about doing that, I might go, well, bear in mind, some of the people that you're involved with have done these other things, and so you want to keep an eye out. But my attitude has always been, if you consent to get involved with a market organization, you can't be surprised when they do what the market tells them to do. You have to just accept that, because they're slaves of it. They're slaves, and slaves, in a really important sense, are subjects rather than citizens. They don't have agency as a consequence of that. The Etienne Balibar argument, that all of us are both citizens and subjects, right? In my book, I talk about this in terms of the subaltern. We're always being ascribed capacities we can't actually actualize in capitalism.
That's true.
Right? So we're always being blamed and scolded for not using these capacities that capitalism actually doesn't really give us, but just says that it gives us, or pretends that it, or gives us in an alienated form.
And then you get blamed when you don't do it. Yeah.
And I pity these people, because I don't view them as elites. I view them as people who have desperately clung to a magazine as a way of earning a living, and that this has gradually compromised to various degrees their ability to express themselves in public, their ability to support the work of other people they think are smart or valuable. I guarantee you all of those guys at Compact think that Nina is smart, valuable. They respect her individually. They are unable to say what they really believe. They're unable to do what they really think is right. And that's the situation of a slave, right? A slave may see a situation and go, oh, I'd like to do this. I think this about it. But the slave can't talk, can't act, because of what the master might say, what the master might do. And it's a relationship of domination and dependence. And it's a dependence that is there even when the master doesn't say, I will do this thing, because the master operates in a super egoic way. There's knowledge of the relationship of dependence, and that itself is coercive, even in the absence of any direct communication from the master. And that's the situation that the magazine people are in.
Very good. And you have to realize, I know you realize this, that what you just said about them is more cutting than me calling them a coward or a hypocrite, calling them a slave.
Well, I hope they don't feel that way, because I pity them. I pity all of the people.
But men don't like to be told that you pity them. I don't know if you know this.
Well, yeah, they don't like it, but I do. Well, Aristotle would say that a slave isn't really a man anyway, right? Because a slave is not a free citizen. So a slave is not a free man in the Aristotelian sense. So we're not really talking about men in the full Aristotelian sense of that term.
No, but you see the point I'm making, don't you? So they can just that argument that you just made would be more cutting to them.
It would if they were men, but they're slaves. They understand the situation that they're in. They'll be able to see the truth in what I'm saying. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. But the fetishistic disavowal, right? Anyway, sorry, fantastic tangent. At some point, I'll have to edit that out and make its own little thing. But good for you, Benjamin. For all of you slaves out there, Benjamin modeled both how you would a way to handle the Nina Power situation, and also a very important and I think unique understanding of how these things happen. A market analysis, a capitalist critique, or critique of cancellation in the media space, probably also also in the other institutions. So we'll cut that out. But now, okay, so back to Virginia Heffernan. Again, so when she was going on and on about how, basically the liberal media, the liberal media and the liberal elite would be able to move heaven and earth to get the Democratic elected if they were to pick somebody who's not degenerating in front of us. And I just kind of wrote but it won't matter. And PMC, DNC, ID poll is DOA. Trust the people, wink. So PMC, for people who don't know, is professional managerial class. DNC is Democratic National Convention, but it's the party. ID poll is identity politics, and DOA is dead on arrival. I'm wishful thinking. I'm hoping we're in the terminal phase of the rage of ID politics, but who knows? And then trust the people, wink. And it's just the thing is that, again, because the hypocrisy of it, you have to laugh at. It's all about we're being told that democracy's on the ballot. And if we don't vote for the Democratic Party, it'll be the end of democracy and all this stuff. But a lot of what these people are doing, I find to be I don't know what definition of democracy they're playing on. I mean, it's kind of like a liberal oligarchy, maybe. But I don't know if you have anything to say about this. I'm going to go and click on Virginia's bio so we can get some idea about what she's about.
A lot of people understand democracy in a kind of Schumpeterian minimalist way.
She's a journalist for Wired.
Multi-party elections.
Okay, so let's see. She's a journalist for Wired, and she's on Threads. Homo sum.
I feel bad about picking on journalists.
Okay, what is this though? What you know Latin, yeah? Homo sum human. What does that mean? She's saying something in Latin.
I'm a man. Yeah.
Yeah. Humanini. Okay, pretentious lady. Okay. Oh, she's in Deutschland. Bad Welt Deutschland. That's interesting. Anyway, yeah. So she looks fairly. Let's see if I can get a better picture of her. Oh, she looks youngish, but it's hard. Yeah, she looks pretty young, but there's also Photoshop. I can also make myself look 30 with some help of technology. Anyway.
Journalism is like a whole degree in being a slave. It's a very difficult thing to have to do.
Yeah. So let's get into the Vance choice. And I decided to title this episode, or at least the first part, Trumpism 2.0, Make Capitalism Great Again. And the reason why I did is because what the parts that I saw of the convention is, this Vance choice, and it seems people are kind of there's some seems to be, at least rhetorically. I don't know you probably know maybe their electoral record better than I do. This pushback on corporate money, kind of a populist rhetoric. And so, yeah, and of course, Trump, so Vance is going to, they're thinking like the Rust Belt vote and this type of thing. And he also wrote Hillbilly Elegy. I haven't read the book or seen was it a miniseries or movie, whatever it was. And then I saw the Teamsters guy. And that's when I really thought, something is interesting that they invited the president of the Teamsters Union to talk to the, let me get this picture on here. To address the convention. It was clear to me this is the speech that this guy wrote. This wasn't a RNC speech, and I don't know. So I'm thinking if the play is not so much there's a populist one, but it's also about, I think, make capitalism great again. This idea that you can go back. You can undo NAFTA. You can have put the genie back in the bottle, so to speak. You can have these good union jobs. You can have it not be. We can't let capital get everything it wants, and so on and so on. So I thought, I don't know if they say it that way, but I was thinking, they're going to try and make capitalism great again. And my question to you is, well, several, Benjamin, is what do you think of this way of capturing what could be going on, in Trumpism as it evolves or devolves? I think it's evolving. Again, not a normative thing, not that I'm in love with it. And do you think it's possible? Can they make capitalism great again? Can they go back to, I don't know, the 60s or something? I'm not sure what the model would be there. And if so, it'd be kind of a temporary fix if we want to bring in the geographers, which I love. So David Harvey and Neil Smith about the spatial fix. Do you think they'd be able to do that? Or do you think this is just kind of cope and bargaining and denial about the status of global capitalism and what the United States can and can't do about the constraints that it has, like those ones that maybe our slaves at Compact also know but pretend aren't so constraining? So
Vance is Peter Thiel's
for us.
slave. Vance gets his money mainly from Peter Thiel, as I understand it. So I there's a relationship of dependence there. I would say, of course, I don't think any of this is going to work. For the people who really believe it can work, it's cope. For other people, it's straightforwardly a way of rebranding or aesthetically recharacterizing more or less the same stuff. You mentioned get rid of NAFTA. Trump already did that. Trump got rid of NAFTA in the previous term, and then he immediately replaced it with another agreement that is almost entirely the same, with very superficial changes. And people said, wow, isn't this great? He's overcome NAFTA, right? Trump tore up the Trans-Pacific Partnership and pivoted to trade war, right? Ostensibly for reshoring. But what are we really getting? Friendshoring. Where do the jobs really go when they leave China? Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, India, the Philippines. That's what really happens. Taiwan, Australia. And if they do come back to the United States, they're automated. The number of jobs that are created is an entire order of magnitude or more smaller than it would have been if a comparable facility had been moved to the United States 30, 40, 50 years ago. So no, they can't accomplish anything. And they also have shown in the past that when push comes to shove that they're cowards. When the COVID pandemic happened, there was an opportunity, a crisis, major disruption to global trade flows as a consequence of it. Trump could have said, this is the crisis I can now exploit. Anything bad that happens economically can be blamed on the pandemic. It won't be straightforwardly my fault. So therefore, I can do things that are disruptive, and the short-term costs, I won't pay the full price of them politically. He could have thought like that if that was really what he wanted to do, but he didn't. He immediately started backing away from the trade war. He got back to the table with Xi Jinping as fast as his pudgy little legs could carry him. He got back to that table and he started winding down that trade war. And Biden has continued all of the relevant Trump policies at the border and on trade. He has continued to play this game with China about Biden, the Biden administration said, okay, if the Trans-Pacific Partnership isn't politically viable, we might as well do the kinds of things that Trump is doing. Has this resulted in massive reshoring of jobs, return of manufacturing, return of the labor unions? No. The labor unions still in the United States have a level of penetration, percentage-wise, that is about as low as it's been in the modern era. We are not going to see any kind of major change here. What we are going to see is rebranding. And we are going to see some people who want to believe that there is a way within the existing institutions, without making big, difficult changes, that there is a way to get where they want to go. I was at, so I don't know if you know, but Sublation is making a documentary film about the conventions as a way of kind of commenting.
No, I've been blocked, so I don't know.
Yeah, as a way of commenting on the 2024 moment, Sublation is doing this. So they invited me to come and help them with this documentary. So I was at the RNC, and I'm going to be at the DNC to help Sublation with this documentary. And
nice. You were in the belly of the beast.
Yeah, it's the perfect way for me to relate to the election, because it's just, let's listen to these people talk, and we don't have to normatively argue with them, because I have nothing to gain from normatively arguing with them anyway. It's perfect. It's my little opportunity to play at being an anthropologist. I'm having a great time, right? So, we go and we talk to some of the principles first people, the people who are never Trump Republicans. And one of them, Joe Walsh, who's a former congressman, he tells me that he really thinks there's nothing fundamentally wrong with free trade and high immigration, that these things should, in principle, be good for the country and totally sustainable. It's just that elites need to explain them better. And the way for elites to explain them better is to do electoral reform without campaign finance reform, right? So go to like single transferable vote, get 3 or 4 different political parties going, but make sure that all of the parties are completely full of billionaire money. So then you'll have a bunch of different aesthetic costumes for the same thing, which will be Reaganism. It'll be neoliberal free trade, open flows, open movement of people. That's ultimately
but people will feel seen and heard. But
people will be descriptively and symbolically represented, and that will paper over all of the things that they're not substantively getting. This is the argument that is implied all the time by the elites. But Joe Walsh said it in a very straightforward way that was very honest. And I thought it was very, he's not in Congress anymore. And there's a reason why he was willing to say that in that way to me on camera. Hopefully Doug Lane will use it. But I thought that was really interesting and very revealing. And I think that there are a lot of people who haven't cottoned on that the Trump campaign is already that. It's already an attempt to aesthetically repackage the same thing. It isn't really this sharp distinction. You don't actually have a bunch of Trumpers who are capable and willing to disrupt capital mobility. There's no sizable contingent among them who actually are willing to pay the cost. All of them complain all the time about the cost of living and inflation. That's what really bothers them. So how can they sever a bunch of trade links to China and pay the adjustment costs of redrawing them over the course of several years? No, they're not going to do that. They're way, way too scared of the market for that.
Okay, so but let's putting that to the side. This caused a bit of an uproar. He mentioned in this, and I just thought that I was like, "Yo, who is this guy?" But even though I'm like, you never know. I mean, things can happen. Maybe Trump's brush with death really was a fall and the rise, and his spirit is, maybe he's on a touched by an angel type path. I mean, I don't know. So we'll see. But yeah, I think that I can't think of what I would how I could dispute your assessment of this. That it's basically a rebranding. So far, there's little reason to think that, even though, so I guess you would say that the pick of Vance was just also for just the look of it, because he's a younger guy. He has that great backstory. He's also from the right geographical location. And it's not really about, do you think he's a fake populist? Or do you think he doesn't really?
I mean, it's not even that fake.
Or do you think he's a naive one?
I'd say it's not even that fake that he's not a populist, right?
Okay.
If you go and look at Hillbilly Elegy, and whether it's reading the book or watching the film is really bad and got terrible reviews for good reason. But the book originally was universally panned on the left because it was a culturalist argument of the kind that's made about African Americans in the United States.
Okay, the culture of poverty. Okay.
Yeah, culture of poverty argument. It didn't at all acknowledge, in any real way, capitalism, economic structures, any of that. It was very, very blatantly arguing that there are cultural norms that have spread in Appalachia or in the Midwest that cause people to not take advantage of what the country offers them. It was very much that kind of frame. And I thought, it's amazing to me that people think that ordinary voters won't learn about that because of the Netflix movie. The Netflix movie will get watched by many, many people because it's not that hard to get access to. And people will cut clips of it and put them on TikTok and put them all over the place. And that movie is sufficiently stupid that it can be used oppositionally. And I expect that it probably will.
Okay. Yeah, and also I just as an aside, I saw I forgot to. I thought I bookmarked it and I didn't because it was so hilarious. There was this meme about JD Vance, and there was something about Trump playing 4D chess. Think about it. Vance knows no one knows how to fight with an Indian woman better than he does. The VP debate will be cake or something. It was, and there was more, and I thought, and what was funny is it showed up on my feed because one of my followers who's Indian, an Indian lady, kind of like retweeted with kind of like a half like half smile, half grimace face, like, okay, I hate this, but it's funny at the same time. And I thought, okay, I mean, I thought that was kind of the interesting take that, and I had forgotten that Kamala's mom was Indian, so it was kind of interesting. I thought that was kind of a funny meme.
Classic racializing of American politics.
Yeah. But the whole thing always that Trump is playing some sort of 4D chess. It's always the thing. And again, and I don't want to get too Lacanian here or Zizekian, but it's kind of like the subject's supposed to know, yeah? So like they know. Like, Trump knows, or what you call the Regency, or they know, or is it like somebody knows what's going on? And it's all 4D chess, and we just don't have the perch that they do. So we should just,
Well, you see all this about the attempted assassination of former President Trump, right?
Yeah.
All of these people with conspiracy theories, including many Democrats who, in ordinary circumstances, say that this kind of thinking is unhelpful or unconstructive, just throwing out different ideas about who they think is really responsible and what they think really went on. I always say, whatever happened to suspending judgment until we actually know something? And, you might doubt whatever is uncovered. You might doubt that too, but why do you have to claim with certainty
right away
how all of this works, exactly what happened? Nobody knows exactly what happened. This stuff will come out, and then you'll have an opportunity to believe it or not. But if you don't believe it, it's not as if you're going to have the facts. You're just going to not know. Conspiracy theories are ways of papering over gaps. It's people who can't accept the apophatic being excessively cataphatic in their declarativeness about what is occurring in this cosmos.
And here's just two. There was a lot, of course, and he mentioned this. The guy. But before we get into the haters, people hating Sean O'Brien, and I hadn't heard about him before. Although I have Teamsters in my family, especially on my dad's side, there's a lot of Teamsters. Anyway, so that's a side note. Just as the speech, I was like, putting to the side the constraints, so both nationally and globally within a capitalist system, what can be, what's possible to be done. What stood out to you at the speech? There's a couple of things that he said that I was like, whoa. I mean, the whole thing anyway. So just as a president of the Teamsters giving a speech at a presidential convention, what were your thoughts?
Well, what stood out to me was how long they let him go for. I'm sure he made that a sticking point when he negotiated all of this, that he would get to talk for a long time and that nobody would get to run over the speech. Those are things he wanted to say to a large audience of people. And he agreed to do this in large part because he got to say those things to that large audience. That seemed to me to be very important to him. Because really what his goal is to make the unions an independent force. He doesn't want the unions dependent on or beholden to any political party. He wants more independence for working class organizations. And in that respect, his position is not decidedly different from that of many socialists in the country. But I am always extremely skeptical of those who think that one or other of the political parties at this point can be realigned. I did not buy the Republican Party realignment argument that people were making after 2020. I didn't buy it. And it's one of the reasons why I occupy the specific spot I occupy now, as opposed to the other spots that other people who bought that argument now occupy.
All right. So you could say that there could be a shift in the base, but the superstructure remains the same of the RNC and the
base of the, are you talking
well,
about
I mean,
the
like, because
economic base or the base of the party?
No, not the capitalist base. I mean, I understand that, but well, we'll have to have a different base. We have like the base. We have capitalism, liberal capitalism, left or right. Then we have like the base of support. So like when they talk about the Democratic base or the Republican base,
the voting base is what you mean.
Voting base, yeah. And then you have the donors and the kingmakers and queenmakers and the all that stuff. So what you're saying is that the voting base is shifting around a bit, but the economic base and the superstructure of these parties, no, you're not buying it.
Yeah, the workers don't have the structures that they can use to actually compel these people to follow through on anything they say. And when these people get into office, they calculate that taking any kind of real major steps would involve adjustment costs that it's risky to pay, and that it's less risky for them to continue to talk in such a way that people think they might be on their side while they do what's necessary to avoid the adjustment costs. Those being rapid cost of living increase driven by disrupted supply chains, those being capital flight driven by higher tax rates, those being conflicts with other states over how to change the way that we regulate these systems internationally.
Yeah. Okay. I really liked Roseelle's speech was good. And also he was so good at giving it. And what I loved, because I was thinking of some of the highfalutin Marxists, and I probably become and I can get highfalutin too, if I forget. But I was like, I don't know this guy's background. My guess is he didn't go to grad school or whatever. And yet I was like, people could learn from his way of talking and his phraseology, for lack of a better word, and I knew, of course, there's going to be all these think pieces, and Jacobin's going to say what they think, and the New Republic will say, or was it New Republic or whatever that one guy's name is, yeah. And everyone is going to, about what was it the right thing to do? Was it the wrong thing to do? And what he's missing and what he's not missing, blah, blah, blah. All these people who are, in the talk and thinking business, or should be in the thinking business. But I thought, especially when he mentioned what I thought was really useful, and I don't know why, maybe he's not the only one that's ever said this, when he said the Chamber of Commerce is a union, these are also unions, or unions of corporations, or unions of the rich people. So don't make any mistake about it. And basically, it's kind of fun. Like, oh, so they get a union and we can't, and and of course, lobby union, whatever. All the it makes sense. But I thought that was clever. I thought that was useful. That stuck in my mind. And then also, of course, when he went to talk about the back and forth in Washington and all the talk, and basically saying, and it shows that quite quickly, it's like it didn't take him long to figure out how the game is played, or the game in Washington. Yeah. And
it's the most exposure any trade unionist has had to the American public in many, many years.
Yeah. So why would anybody,
if it doesn't make that much difference who wins the election, that is something for him to go for.
Yeah, and that's why I thought, like, people who were panning this decision, I just hate these. Well, I'm sorry, I shouldn't personalize it. There's these slaves to the system. I'm like, and I also thought what you did is like, well, of course he should go there. Why shouldn't he go there? It's a huge platform, and also, and it also causes intrigue. Like, it's like, well, Trump invited him. Yeah, obviously, a lot of people in the Democratic Party, not the quote unquote Trump base, I'm sure we're, just the fact that there's people in the audience who you knew were hating everything this man was saying. And
But
they
some
had
of
to
them
watch
will
it.
admit it publicly. Some of them will say
Yeah, yeah,
publicly that they don't like
yeah,
that these things are happening, and that will make
yeah.
it easier for the divisions to be brought to the fore.
hmm But Trump, at least, I mean, in terms, he obviously there was some reason he brought that guy on, and I agree. The guy is like, why it's stupid. This whole thing about these cooties thing. It's like, why if you're or anybody from an organization like that, if you have a chance to say what you want to say to that many people and get the media coverage and whatnot, why wouldn't you do it? And people are like, oh, he sold out. I'm like, that was not that was not an endorsement.
Yeah, Trump
That was
wants to
not.
win
There was
the
no.
election.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
All he cares about is winning the election.
Yeah.
The election
Yeah.
doesn't matter that much to us, but it matters a
Yeah.
lot to him. So that whole first night was about demographic groups, parts of the voting bloc that he thinks that he can win, and giving somebody from each of those blocks an opportunity to talk in a way that's sufficiently friendly to him that he thinks it will help him win the election. And who did he have that first day? Amber Rose, the woman who is Hispanic, and our trade union guy. Those are the three people.
Yeah,
Those are the three groups he wants. Black people, Hispanic people, working class people.
I was wondering if 50 Cent was going to make an impression. I thought if 50 Cent comes out and does a performance of In the Club, dude.
2 out of 3 women, right? 2 out of the 3 women. That's what he was going for that night. There were other nights where he went to more of the core base, when he has Hulk Hogan on. These are people who are.
Oh, I hadn't seen that yet. Was it? I saw something. Someone on my chat. I have a chat group, but there's about 10 of us, and the morbid symptoms, silent and not silent contributors, and I'm the only American on there, and they're like, Tara, can you explain this to me? Or I'm sorry, I know you're an American, but what's I'm like, what, man? It's my people.
Trump goes way back with the wrestling guys. Way back. He's been friendly with those guys for decades. They're his buds.
Yeah. Well,
and
there's
a lot
also
of these conventions are about have your friends on, have your family on, be humanized. So if you have a friend who is the Hulk, who's Hulk Hogan, why not have him on at your convention? This is a celebrity who likes you. And the Republicans have done this in the past. They had Clint Eastwood on in 2012.
Yeah. Oh, the chair.
What
the
qualification does Clint Eastwood have to be in a convention talking about an American presidential election? No more than Hulk Hogan does, and no less than Hulk Hogan does.
Or George Clooney or Rob Reiner.
Yeah, none of these people are more qualified than Hulk Hogan. Just because Hulk Hogan has an aesthetic that resonates more with working class people doesn't make him less qualified. Indeed, in this situation, it makes him more qualified than those people. It's better for Trump to have Hulk Hogan on that stage than Clint Eastwood.
Who's still alive, I think. Anyway, so of course people are coming for him. And I know, and I tell you this, that especially with social media and all that, people have to get their hot takes out right away, and their position. And so you had the daily union elections. I don't know who this guy is. And right away, he's like, if you're a Teamster of color or LGBTQ, Sean O'Brien has just said he doesn't give a fuck about you. Really? And I was like, okay. They're still playing this. It's like they don't realize that the train's left the station. Like the diminishing returns, I think I just don't think
they're doing their internal union politics. There is an internal union fight about whether the unions should exclusively tail the Democrats or whether they should try to develop a more independent position. And doing this in public is a way of trying to weaponize cancellation to win an internal fight within the union. It's an attempt to leverage the wider public or the wider union membership that is not super involved, but is in the public and follows these Twitter accounts to try to push people out or cancel them. And it's something that people who are desperate to win internal struggles do. But it should only be viewed as that and nothing more than that. These people are just desperate people who are suffering. And that's why they do this shit.
Yeah. And then we have somebody else. This person was reporting on it, though. Matthew Chapman, not who, I can't remember. And I don't know what this was because there's so many outlets now that I'm like, betrayal. in quotes, Teamsters head who spoke at Trump's RNC faces challenge for kissing the ring. Now, you were there, and I think I know what your answer is going to be, but I watched that twice, and I'm like, this wasn't an endorsement. He didn't endorse him. I mean, of course he was gracious. You don't go to somebody's party and shit on them. I mean, you can, but how would that have helped the Teamsters? So I was like, yeah, he was like, thanked him for the opportunity. And he was happy to accept the invitation. And he's the first Teamster president to ever talk to the RNC. And then anybody who got caught past that, who actually can listen to what that guy said and think that he was like pandering or kissing Donald Trump's ring, I'm just like, I cannot take you seriously. And I guess I should be nice and as Benjamin
they're
is,
saying
and
that
say,
because they
I'm sorry. I feel bad that they're suffering so bad that they make these kinds of statements.
Yes. All of it should be pitied. It really should. Especially poor journalists who have to write.
Can I do pity and laughter? Can I laugh at them and then feel bad for them?
Well, it's not real pity if you.
Not in their face. I mean, I didn't publish this. They did.
Well, did they?
Well, I mean, somebody did. Yeah.
Their magazine published it, and they probably, these guys who write, freelance journalists or people who write for these magazines, they pitch stuff at editors, and the editors reject stuff, and the editors say only if you do this or that. And so by the time it actually comes out, oftentimes it has very little to do with what the person whose name on it originally thought. Especially these old traditional magazines and newspapers, the editors use their power as editors to greatly limit and circumscribe what the authors are able to do. So I feel so bad for them, because a lot of the time the authors end up with takes and views attributed to them that aren't really their own or not the ones they started with. And sometimes by the end of the process, they've convinced themselves they agree with their editor and that the editor actually saved the piece or made it dramatically better. And to be sure, there is a role for editing. And some editors do genuinely make some pieces better. But a lot of the time when we're talking about political writing, the line between improving the quality of a written piece aesthetically as a work of art and making the argument something that the editor agrees with is blurred, very heavily blurred, to the point where neither side can really see what's actually happened. And you end up with something that doesn't really. Why is the editor making the decisions he's making? Oftentimes, he's thinking about how the readers will react or how the subscribers will react. So when he changes the piece, is he really acting as himself, or is he personating the market? So by the time the piece comes out, the piece is really authored by the market. It's not authored either by the outlet, and it's not really authored by the person whose name is on it.
And for anybody out there who's submitted to an academic journal, this would be reviewer 2. Because I've had, oh God, I hate when I've been placed with 3 reviewers. I'm like, Jesus criminy. But there's usually like, there's always one who seems to like, you want to say like, look, that's a great idea. Maybe you should write that paper, because it's not the paper I'm writing. You always have, there's always one.
Out, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes reviewer 2 is right. And sometimes reviewer 2 has an ideological motivation, and the people running the journal can't tell the difference. Even though they're also academics, and sometimes, you'd think they might be able to. And occasionally really good editors will ignore aspects of a review that they can see are motivated too much by somebody's own perspective or work. And to some degree, the academic journals have some insulation from the market, to some degree. And that makes them more open to different things, if you find the right journal for your stuff, than these magazines. These magazines, because they're commercial, are much more limited in what they can do. It's very hard.
But I think it's also in the top tier journals, especially when you're rated, like with the RAF and whatnot, is that every year there's more and more people publishing more and more stuff. So you have to, weed out some. I think that's why a lot of the journals also go online. Yeah,
a lot of the stuff that goes on with the journals is to do with honor and status rather than raw market advantage. So there's a little bit of a feudal aristocratic sort of degeneration that goes on sometimes in that. But it's a little different from the straight market degeneration in the magazines.
No, yeah, I just know that I noticed that it was like, that's why some of them have gone to also like online first, or because there's such a backlog that You know? And of course, they need people to review them, and you don't get paid for reviewing. It's just kind of like your job, when your responsibility when you join the guild is to do
Your
that. And
honor and dignity is invoked. You're
yeah.
supposed to do
Well,
this
yeah.
because it's what
And for me, though, I think sometimes I'm like, these editors, because I've been asked to review some things, and I'm like, how did this get? Nobody could have read this because it's so bad. And not like my personal feeling, just like just some basic stuff. I'm like, why are they said? Because you would expect that if they're going to ask you for your time and to take it seriously, they should at least skim it quite quickly and be if it's worthwhile or not.
Well, the desk
stuff,
project is an important way of saving everybody time.
Yeah. I'm like, how did this? I mean, I'm like, oh my God. And then of course, if somebody asks you, then think, great, now I have to take my time because I want to take it seriously, you know? And that's why I expected when if the editor, and I've had this with one or two journals, it wasn't top tier journals, that said like the editor, when whoever was the corresponding with me, kind of gave me a tip about what they thought was the most important stuff to consider, or what their like some of their takes on the thing. But then you still have to go through the motions and respond to every single thing that every single reviewer says. You know, why don't I tell you that? And so you're just going to put like, really, I have to do this with this. Like, it's like, did this guy even read it? Or you can just tell that it's ideological. They just really don't like the framework that you're using and want you to use a different one. It's like, well, I'm using this one. You know? I mentioned this one. I make the argument why I'm using this one. I don't want to use your, I'm using
and sometimes in that situation, you just have to find a different journal because you're dealing with a set of people committed to a set of methodologies that just aren't really your own. And this is why methods wars become so intense in the academy, because what we think of as the acceptable methods have a lot to do with who gets ahead and who doesn't, and what you can get away with and what you can't. For instance,
that's a whole other story. We can't get on that.
Oh,
train.
yeah.
I mean, I wish someone had told me I could have done that. I spent years in India in the heat. I could have just, thought
put
about
yourself in an urban environment and described how it felt.
Yeah. I mean, I damn it. Okay. All right. A god is born. Myth.
Jeez.
Okay, so if you can, I know it's hard because you've been at the convention and you've been conventioning, but what were your kind of first thoughts when you started to see when you saw this image, and what did you think of what did you make of it? What did you think, like just say that, let's say you're a political operative, let's say that you're a moralist, you're just like you're a Peter Dowd type guy or a Karl Rove, or I don't know who, the Lincoln Project. And your thing is about getting your guy to win, and you see this picture.
what I've been noticing about the picture is that everybody immediately thought about it like an operative. So everybody immediately thought about it with a level of remove, right? But if everybody's thinking about it like an operative, then the ordinary logic of operation doesn't apply, right? The operative is going, I'm viewing this as an operative. How will other people who aren't operatives view it? Right? How are other people who are sheep or who are subjects of the image and controlled or shaped in some way by the image, how will they react to the image? So it posits the other as reactive to the image, right? But oneself is above such reaction. Now, if everybody is thinking like an operative, then everybody is thinking of oneself as immune to the image from the start. And for that reason, the image will have no effect.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think it will move the polling really at all.
Okay.
The Trumpers will
it's a lucky image, though.
Should move the polling, so their morale will be higher because they think the image will help them. So right now their morale is up. They're really hyped. But the image won't actually help them because everybody has already thought about it in this meta way that removes them from the force of it.
Or would you also say that this would just get people excited who were already excited about Trump? That it wouldn't, it's probably not going to woo a lot of the, what do you call it, the independent or the
the thing that really blows my mind, what really blows my mind, and I don't know if this will remain the case, but so far in the national polling, there has been just about no movement in the numbers since the assassination attempt. If anything, Biden is slightly closer on some of the poll averages by maybe half a point.
And what do you make out of that?
I think people are really not moved by a lot of the things that operatives assume that they are moved by, and they make these assumptions based on what used to work. It used to be 30 years ago that if you had an image like that, it probably would hit that way. But we talk everything to death now. So a lot of stuff doesn't have the force it used to have. We rob everything of its theurgic potential by talking it to death.
All right. And what do you think about, how about the evangelicals and this type of, I'm also going to pull up a clip of Michael Tracy, Matt Taibbi, and Walter Kern talking about this part of the thing.
Yeah, they were at the RNC.
Yeah, but I'm gonna calm down. I really like Walter Kern. I didn't for some reason he wasn't on my radar before, but I'm like, I dig this dude. Just as an aside. But okay, so what do you think? Should we watch that? It's the first 5 minutes of their conversation. Should we watch that and then get your response to this meme and also their take, since you were also there?
We can. Just bear in mind, I'm doing a platypus panel at the end of this hour. So
okay.
I only have a little bit more time.
Okay, so we'll do that, and then we'll quickly go to get a bit of your take on the UK thing and the French thing, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, so let me see if I can get this to work. And I need to share. Oh God, I'm so confused now. I got too many things going on. Add to stage. I want to share it. No, crap. Stop sharing. I need to share a different screen. I really need someone to do this part for me. Share the screen. Yes.
It's a lot to have to do on your own. I admire people who do video on YouTube. Yeah. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, it's also just because I'm always worried about the dead air. And then I'm also, because I'm in an old house with thick cement, like literal real walls. And so sometimes the internet, if I have too many things on, gets unhappy. Okay. So 5 minutes of this. You get your 2-minute take on this, the religious or theological type of divination thing going on. 5 minutes on UK. Maybe we'll just give 3 minutes to France, and then we wrap up so you can have a coffee before you go.
Michael, he was chugging across the American continent in a car, in an underpowered compact car.
I trucked here in the same underpowered compact car. It's still working.
Well,
could you believe it?
It's not broke, don't fix it. But
right.
That was after the George Floyd riot.
Yeah, that was
the Summer of Love.
That was almost exactly 4 years ago.
Yeah.
It was July of 2020.
Okay, maybe it's like
Just
5
almost
seconds.
Exactly 4 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And here we are again.
Get off his car.
Divine providence.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So that leads to my first question. I just spoke to Congressman Mike Collins, not to be confused with Congressman Doug Collins, both of Georgia. No relation, he informed me. But Mike Collins, he repeated something that you've heard from a lot of people, which is that they felt that there was divine intervention.
Oh God,
that saved Trump from the bullet. Now, I guess I'm not metaphysically inclined or providentially inclined or whatever, but I can't say I have the ultimate explanations about the nature of the universe. So I'm not going to go out of my way to disprove that assertion, because who the hell knows? But I just wonder, like, how much is this enhancing or bolstering the mythology around Trump, such that people aren't going to care at all about the policy substance of what he does or his record? It seems like this is turbocharged, like the folklore around Trump. And I'm just wondering if you guys pick up on any of that.
This is the Joseph Campbell convention. This is a Star Wars origin story or something that's happening here, in which, the father is grazed by a bullet. I already saw a Japanese anime short with Trump as a kind of square-jawed giant person, and he catches the bullet next to his ear.
It's a quick turnaround.
Yeah. So in the anime world, it wasn't divine intervention. It was kind of incredible prowess to duck that bullet. But, in the world of the evangelical Southern Republican, I can't imagine a better proof of their worldview. We all got to take turns letting people have their wins, and the divine intervention team, I think, should be given a lot of latitude to interpret this. Yeah.
We've already seen online, there's somebody was talking about how Trump, in the moment that he fell, was radically saved.
Yes.
Right. And so he was on his knees and was in that moment.
But Matt, that was an actual prophecy. That was a video of a self-described Christian prophet that was made 3 months ago, and it got wide circulation right after the assassination.
Oh, really?
That was a guy predicting that something would happen. It was even more to the favor of the Christian metaphysicians, so. But that photo of him between the legs of the Secret Service people with his head to the ground.
So on the flip side of that, though, and we were just talking about this on our own show, that the decision to bring Amber Rose out last night definitely raised some eyebrows with the kind of.
Okay. So I'm just gonna let you talk because you have to leave soon. Anything you have to say about that aspect? And because you were also there.
Yeah, there are kind of three different factions in the Republican Party. The libertarian people, the nationalist, protectionist people, and then Christians, sincerely religious people. And something I noticed is that the first two groups have this orientalizing attitude to the Christians, where they kind of pretend to respect them, but don't really. And they talk about them like they're Indian peasants and they're British officers in the Raj. And that's how that struck me. That conversation to me hit me that way.
Yeah, it's condescending. Well, especially Mike Tracy, I think he'll be more of a condescending thing. I don't know about Walter. I think because he's saying
it's the conversation. It's not the people.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about the effect of the conversation, which can be an effect of the dynamic among the participants. Each of them individually taken out of that situation might have a different view. Yeah. Right. But they're in a particular marketized setting, making a video, and they're together interacting with each other, trying to give each other space. Right. So I'm not making an essentializing claim about them as individuals.
Okay. Go ahead. Yeah, I see.
But the thing that I think a lot of people don't grasp about Christians who are committed to Trump is that they have a kind of Trump Constantine argument. Constantine is a very flawed figure, but nonetheless, he acts in a way which ultimately delivers on Christian goods. So even though he himself is flawed and is limited in various ways, he happens to be occupying a role or a position in the cosmos, which is beneficial to Christian ideas or Christian thinking. That tendency in the Republican Party, I think, is also counterbalanced by a Trump Aurelian view. So the Roman Emperor Aurelian is if we can get our gladiuses, if we can get our gladiuses out, put on our Lorica segmentata.
I'm gonna have to Google him
with me for a minute, okay? Rome nerd with me for just a minute, right?
No, I know Constantine, but that guy, I was like, okay, ahead, please.
Aurelian is this Roman emperor before Constantine, who is called the Restitutor Orbis, the restorer of the world. He wages a series of extremely successful military campaigns in a very short, one-term length in American politics period, and puts back together the Roman Empire, defeats all of these, the Gallic Empire, the Palmyrene Empire, these different rogue breakaway segments, different invading groups that come in. He beats them all, and he does it very rapidly, and then he dies. So you've got a chunk of people who are really but he's a pagan. He's totally into Sol Invictus. His army is all about the sun. And there are all these memes you can find of the really hardcore Rome fanboys doing, Sol Invictus, sun worship, Aurelian stuff on YouTube. If you get into the crazy Rome space, there's all sorts of wild stuff that goes on there. But anyway, the pagans who don't believe in religion, who view Christians as useful idiots for their own project, those people I call the Aurelian Republicans. And then the Christians are the Constantine Republicans. And that puts them, I think, on much more even footing. Because really there isn't a whole lot of distance intellectually between the two in terms of quality of analysis or sophistication of analysis. And a lot of the Christian Republicans are upset right now because the Republican Party betrayed them by changing the platform to make it clear that they don't intend to ban abortion nationwide. And there were anti-abortion demonstrators at the convention protesting that. In a very sincere way. That's what they believe. In a very sincere way. And I know that's it's a serious religious tradition that I take seriously. But a lot of the Aurelian side Republicans don't take it seriously and think of those people as foot soldiers in their pagan army. And there is a certain irreconcilability about those two views.
That's so, you're so smart, Benjamin. Not that you don't know it, but yeah, I have to say that our talk that we had before and this one, there's a couple of things that I was like, oh, it's really, and it's always nice, especially if you're in our space, if someone gets you opens up and you think about something in a different way, you get that little kind of rush. So that was the second rush today. Thank you. Anyway, quite quickly, because you have to go. I'm gonna not get on Farage because
they're trying to get me early. They want me there with 10 minutes to spare, so I should go within the next 5 minutes.
Okay, so really quickly, then we'll leave France out of it. Sorry, France. Even though it's interesting. But Peter Hitchens, I asked you, I don't know if you had a chance to explain to me, because Peter Hitchens went on a podcast, it was Trigonometry, and he was basically, in a nutshell, he was like, that Kier Starmer is much more radically left and dangerous than, Jeremy Corbyn is. He brought up something about he's some sort of Trotskyite, Fabian. I mean, and I was like, what's this? I'm like, okay. Because that's not how I read Kier Starmer, but again, I'm not that knowledgeable about Kier Starmer's biography, and I'm just wondering if you had a chance to look at any of that, and if you can kind of translate what Peter's saying, and if it's just craziness or if there's something to it.
Well, I certainly don't think of Starmer in that kind of way. I view him as a basic neoliberal kind of figure. But I think Peter Hitchens doesn't like neoliberals. He doesn't like Conservative Party neoliberals. He doesn't like Labour Party neoliberals. He hates Blairism. He hates, he is fond of saying that the Conservative Party is not even a party. He does that kind of thing.
I know his voice is very authoritative. I have to be careful when I watch him because I'm like, I want to believe what he says just because of the sound of his voice.
Well, he has said many times that he feels that his politics have failed, that his advocacy has failed, that he would have been better off spending his life lying around on a beach. This is a guy who is into a kind of return politics. And like many conservatives, he wants to return to a period that had enough liberalism and capitalism in it that it would have led anyway to the period he doesn't like. And there's debate about exactly what period he likes and where he actually wishes he could take things back to. I think it's probably the 19th century. It's probably not the 50s, although people often will say the 50s. It's probably the 19th century. And there's some people on the left who think the same way, who wish that we could return to the 19th century, to a time before the 30s and before the rise of the administrative state and so on and so forth. I think that's really what he's about. So from his point of view, neoliberalism is a kind of statism, and it's big statism relative to the 19th century. And that's the sense in which, for him, it's part of, for him, fascism and the New Deal and neoliberalism and communism are all part of a 20th century that is a corruption of his ideal, which really goes back further than that.
Okay. No, then, because I was seeing this and I was like, what? I'm like, okay, I don't. And of course he posted because he also was a Trotskyist back in his youth and he went away from it. And this idea that somehow
did he go away from it, or is he still a bit of a trot?
Well, I don't. Yeah, that's
because he misses the 19th century, and Trotsky was very much shaped by the politics of the 19th century.
Yeah. But what did you think? So you think that the way to interpret his concerns about Kier and trying to paint him as like this kind of playing the long game, that he's way more radically left than Jeremy Corbyn, and it's all about they're going to take it's going to be, well, he calls it Starmergrad. And I was like, oh, okay. And then people started sending me stuff about the Fabians. I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to have Benjamin on. He can tell me what's going on with Peter Hitchens.
The Fabians, from the point of view of people of his, of his political persuasion, acquiesced to the administrative state, acquiesced to the New Dealer mid-century state, which they regard as totalitarian. And they regard it as totalitarian, as a total society, regardless of whether it's in its kind of New Deal, liberal, Anglosphere form, or its fascist or communist form. They see those regimes as more similar to each other rather than different. And they really advocate for a quite serious kind of return. I think a lot of people, when they
Mm.
talk about reactionaries, think that we're talking about the 50s, but some of these people are not into the 50s. They're into the 1890s. They want to go way back. And for them, the 50s are a totally unacceptable time of state domination and cultural stultification and conformity. They have a critique of the 50s. And Hitchens does. He has a critique of the 50s. But really, their interest is in going very, very far back. I would say more, but I don't want to disappoint.
Yeah, I would say, go ahead and go. I will plug your website and all of that. Thank you very much. Fascinating. I hope that we can do this on some sort of regular basis. You can be my go-to political guru and bring me the Constantine, all those references. I love it. I can't get enough, Benjamin. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
See ya. Bye-bye. Bye.
All right. So, yeah, Benjamin had to take off. He has another engagement. He's he's in demand with all these things going on. Again, we've been talking about Trumpism 2.0. Is it about trying to make capitalism great again, and the extent that's possible, and how much of what's going on in the not the Democratic Party, but the Republican Party is just a rebranding to diversify it so that more people feel like they're being seen and recognized, but that's going to be that the policies, especially the economic policies, are probably unlikely to change, because even if the people really wanted them to, that within the current the constraints of the market, both national and international capital, there's a limit to what people can do within that system without bring about a lot of transitional costs that are going to be politically he would say unpopular at the point. So we'll see. Time will tell. Also, Benjamin and I got into the Nina Power counseling and how he, how he sees that being a product of a magazine, a compact magazine being captured and being, being in the market mentality and market ethos. And so that even though you can get into it with the best intentions, that over time, it really continues to limit what you write and what positions you can take. And I guess including standing up for your colleagues and / employees when the left Stasi or right Stasi or any Stasi or cancellation campaign, because it also libs of TikTok can be quite vicious as well, come for them. So I appreciate that. I'll try to be more sympathetic, empathetic with our brothers and sisters who are, even though they have nice salaries and seem to have lovely positions, are in a way what Benjamin would say slaves more than subjects or citizens in our current situation. So I thank him for that. And also he came and explained, towards the very end, very rapidly, what to make of Peter Hitchen's assessment of Kier Starmer's being some sort of super radical, secret Trotskyist who's going to, make the state incredibly huge, more than it is now, and very invasive and all of that, which is also interesting. So I'll leave it at that. It's Saturday. I have, thank you for tuning in, either now, the live stream, or later. Please do like and subscribe or share this content. It's an independent venture, Morbid Symptoms Media, and I'd like to make it my full-time focus, but of course I can't rationalize going without an income for too long. So really, what really helps is if you like and subscribe or share the content. For those of you who do have a bit of extra income, I know times are tough, but if you do, you can subscribe to, I'll put it up. You can subscribe to the Substack, and there's free and paid subscriptions. There's also, I think, a tip button on my X handle, although I think I figured that out. There's also Patreon. There's a variety of things, but the quickest and the easiest thing you can do for Morbid Symptoms Media, which is me, kind of the captain of this enterprise, but there are other people who contribute both behind the scenes and come on the screen with me from time to time. Please do like, subscribe, share. And any comments are welcome, negative, positive, whatnot. If you have a morbid symptom, a cultural, political, and economic issue that you think that we should cover, please let me know. If you want to come and cover it with us, always a possibility. Our next live stream will be on Tuesday. Oh dear, at noon UK time, and it's going to be with one of the Morbid Symptoms contributors. Tanya's going to be on, and we also have a special guest, Alexander McKay from, I want to get this right, the Marx Engels Lenin Institute, And we're going to be covering how the left was transed, how and why the left was transed so completely, how so many organizations and individuals seem to have been, at least on the surface, or how they are acting like they've been assimilated by the gender Borg. So that should be interesting. Please tune in for that. And on that note, I will bid you all farewell. I hope you have a fantastic day as much as you can, given the crazy world that we live in that seems to be coming apart at the seams in so many places. But hey, Amber Rose is at the Republican convention, so let's enjoy that. And, cool. I have no problem with her. See you later, people.